On October 1st, 1960, Nigeria celebrated its hard-won independence from British colonial rule. But beneath the jubilation, a complex web of ethnic tensions simmered. For centuries, the Hausa Fulani in the north, the Yoruba in the west, and the Igbo in the east had nurtured distinct cultures, traditions, and ambitions. As the British departed, these competing interests and agendas threatened to tear the young nation apart. Meet Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, Nigeria's first prime minister, who hailed from the north. His government, however, was perceived as having a northern bias, which didn't sit well with the Igbo people. As a predominantly Christian and educated group, the Igbo felt like outsiders in their own country, excluded from the corridors of power and marginalized by the very government that was supposed to represent them. The fragile peace in Nigeria was shattered in January 1966, when a group of Igbo army officers, fueled by frustration and anger, staged a daring coup. The consequences were devastating. Prime Minister Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, a respected northerner, was brutally killed, along with several other prominent northern leaders. This violent uprising marked the beginning of a dark and turbulent period in Nigerian history, one that would ultimately lead to the devastating Biafran Civil War. The January 1966 coup sparked a maelstrom of violence, as the North perceived the Igbos' bold move as a naked power grab. Retaliation was swift and brutal, with Igbo living in the north bearing the brunt of the fury. Panic set in as hundreds of thousands of Igbo fled for their lives, seeking sanctuary in the eastern region. It was here, in the face of unrelenting persecution, that the seeds of secession were sown. On May 30th, 1967, the Republic of Biafra was born, its declaration of independence a defiant cry for self-determination in the face of overwhelming odds. As General Yakubu Gowon seized control of the Nigerian government, the fledgling nation teetered on the brink of chaos. Biafra, the breakaway state, was viewed as a secessionist threat that had to be quashed at all costs. With a steely determination, Gowon vowed to crush the rebellion. And in July 1967, the Nigerian army launched a fierce campaign to capture Enugu, the capital of Biafra. The war had begun, and with it, a maelstrom of violence, bloodshed, and heartbreak that would leave an indelible scar on Nigeria's psyche. The war that ravaged Nigeria was a descent into unmitigated hell. Brutality and devastation reigned supreme, as both sides unleashed unspeakable atrocities upon each other. Innocent civilians, including women, children, and the elderly, were mercilessly caught in the crossfire, their lives reduced to mere collateral damage. The sounds of gunfire, screams, and wailing filled the air. As the very fabric of Nigerian society was torn asunder, the war was a humanitarian catastrophe, one that would leave deep physical and emotional scars on the nation for generations to come. As the war dragged on, a catastrophic humanitarian crisis gripped Biafra, leaving its people on the brink of starvation and desperation. The Nigerian government's suffocating blockade had sealed off the region, choking the flow of food, medicine, and aid. The consequences were dire. Children's bellies swelled with hunger. Hospitals were drained of life-saving medicines, and the once thriving communities were reduced to mere shadows of their former selves. The world watched in horror as Biafra teetered on the edge of collapse, its people crying out for mercy, for aid, and for an end to the devastating war that had brought them to this breaking point. The haunting images of Biafra's forgotten children seared themselves into the global consciousness, igniting a firestorm of outrage and compassion. Their tiny bodies, ravaged by hunger and disease, told a devastating story of a nation in crisis. Distended bellies, sunken eyes, and fragile limbs etched a permanent scar on the world's collective memory. As these heart-wrenching images flashed across television screens and newspaper front pages, the international community was galvanized. Humanitarian organizations, ordinary citizens, joined forces to demand an end to the suffering and to bring aid to the starving masses of Biafra. On January 15, 1970, the battered and bruised remnants of Biafra's resistance finally laid down their arms, surrendering to the Nigerian government after a grueling 33-month war. The devastating conflict had exacted a staggering toll. An estimated 3 million lives lost, with the majority succumbing to the silent killers, starvation, and disease. The once green fields of Biafra were now scarred by the ravages of war, and the survivors were left to pick up the pieces of shattered lives, forever changed by the trauma of conflict. As the guns fell silent, the world was left to ponder the true cost of war and the unbearable price paid by the innocent civilians of Biafra. The Nigerian government had won the war, but at great cost. The country was left divided, and the scars of the conflict would take decades to heal. The Nigerian Civil War was a tragic reminder of the devastating consequences of ethnic and regional tensions. Today, Nigeria continues to grapple with these challenges, but by remembering the past, we can work towards a more united and peaceful future. Thank you for joining us on this poignant journey through Nigeria's turbulent past. We hope that the story of Biafra has left a lasting impression on you and inspired a deeper understanding of the complexities of human conflict. If you're hungry for more thought-provoking documentaries and historical insights, please consider subscribing to our channel. By joining our community, you'll gain access to a wealth of informative content, carefully crafted to educate, enlighten, and inspire. We look forward to sharing more compelling stories with you in the future.